White Beam, to me, is a very intriguing upset possibility. She should be 4, 5, 6 to 1. We're about to do a round table on the Travers Stakes on Saturday, but already a winner with ice cold brewed short bed coffee. Check out the comments for a link where you can get some for yourself, and you can start out as a winner also. Cogburn, very interesting in Detroit, in my opinion. This is a horse that always showed a lot of potential. Exploded second time out, win by 4.
Here comes Cogburn, and Cogburn has his sights on Nobles in the final 16th of a mile.
There's a lot of turf in this pedigree, top and bottom.
It will be Cogburn on the outside, getting to the front.
The other thing that I like about Cogburn a lot is when I look at his Thoroughgraph numbers. He's got some fast races. He's got a 1.
And Cogburn under Ricardo Santana Jr. wins the Troy.
I love in these 3-year-old races. Again, those of you that watch the show and have been reading, you know my columns and a lot of my handicapping things over the years know I like up and comers. I like betting horses to do things that you know maybe we can anticipate that some others can't, and that's how you sometimes beat a lot of favorites. I like program trading.
And program trading, resilient coming back on the inside. Program trading would not be denied.
White Barrio is very interesting to me for a couple of reasons. We heard from Blake, we know what the Vaughn thinks, okay? Second time Rick Dutrow. This time gets the jump from the catbird seat and turn it for home. White Barrio was going to be in the race, if not on the lead, in the race, and the one they got to go get.
They're at the top of the stretch in the Whitney, and White Barrio is the leader narrowly over Giant Game.
We've had Irad breezing him a bunch at Belmont before he came up here. I know Irad really likes him. You know, we think that he should improve off of his last race. And, you know, if he gets a clean trip, we're expecting him to run big.
Look at White Barrio and Arad Ortiz Jr. in a runaway. White Barrio wins by almost 6 lengths.
Rhyme schemes on the outside, the bottom horse for Norm Cassie. Horse didn't do a lot of running first time out at Churchill Downs, going 5/8 of a mile, and what I thought was a pretty fast race on not such a fast track that day. He was 6 by 9, didn't really do any running, but he only went off 6, 7 to 1, so he took some money, and that turned out to be a very live race. Bunch of horses come out of that race to win, which I like with 2-year-olds.
And they're off, and Woodcourt flies out of the gate, immediately joined by Market Street, and these two duel through the opening furlong. Rhyme Schemes gets a good spot, 2 off the pace in third.
But he can certainly clear, and Santana is aggressive, and I can see this horse going 2 for 2 with the blinkers, and I'm hoping that they bet Pletcher's horse and the other horse.
And now Rhyme Schemes makes the move at the top of the stretch. It's a good one too. Rhyme Schemes takes over. Opens up 2 on Market Street in second. In the center of the track, it's Hall in third, but with a furlong left to go, Rhyme Schemes is long gone. A spectacular display from Rhyme Schemes, running home all alone in the Saratoga Special by 8 or 9 lengths.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Tracking Trips with Pick 6 King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Frankie Dettori. Ciao, Frankie. Tutto a posto.
Tutto a posto. Yes, that's a good start. So you haven't lost your Italian.
Frankie Dettori, legend, world-class jockey, one of the best ever to sit in the saddle, ambassador to the sport of kings. Meet Frankie during his fanfare like never before, only on Past the Wire TV.
Hello, everybody. Our panel is back together. Ed DeRosa with Horse Racing Nation, Dan Cronin, Fat Bald Guy Racing, Keeneland Dan, no longer Fat Bald Guy, now he's Skinny Bald Guy. But it's still him. You lost the weight. You didn't lose any of the knowledge, right?
Exactly. I know my golf game didn't get any better, that's for sure.
Well, let me tell you, I hope you guys, and I'm not a hype guy, but I hope you guys are as enthused about the Travers this year as I am. I think it's a phenomenal race, one of the better 3-year-old races that I've seen in a long time as far as competitive. Almost everybody you want to be there is there. And I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to bet on it, actually.
No, this is you want these horses lining up in this race. It's great, no disrespect to Parks, but the Pennsylvania Derby, I think, has definitely had an effect on the Travers the last few years, and they're still going to get some good ones. But the ones you'd want in a grade 1 for a mile and a quarter to end the summer are here. And I'd go so far as to say whoever wins this is going to be the favorite in the Breeders' Cup Classic, or at least the favorite for now, immediately after.
Interesting.
What some others do. So, and I should say, if the winner's one of the 4 that are expected to be among the likely winners. So we'll get to all that, but yeah, this is the
if a 3-year-old doesn't win the Breeders' Cup Classic, I think this race is the 3-year-old championship. I would guess right here, right?
That too, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the only scenario that could change that is if a different horse wins this race, and then another 3 somebody wins this race, then a different 3-year-old wins the Classic. That might change, but other than that, and like you said, Ed, the winner of this might be the favorite in the Classic, and it's certainly not a year like last year where we had a flight line and it was unlikely for a 3-year-old to win. This year, it looks likely that a 3-year-old can win, I would say. So let's get into it, man. Let's start with the 2-year-old champ and the favorite Forte. They made him 7-5 on the morning line. Ed, is that about what you would have made him?
I think so. I mean, maybe it seems like there's a zest for Arcangelo, so I could have seen maybe 8-5 on Forte, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, I think he'll be a touch above even money. And people like betting this horse. I mean, there's just no denying that based on what we've seen in all his starts as a 3-year-old. So Makes sense to me, and it's a little light though, so an
Yeah,
underway.
I will say you this. When you see him live in the flesh, he's a looker. I mean, he really is. He just really outlooks everybody that I've seen him against in the paddock, and I think that helps drive the price down. Pletcher, Irad. So yeah, we'll start with you and your thoughts on him, Dan. But I will say this going into this little roundtable we're having. I'm going to look really, really smart or really, really stupid Saturday evening. So we'll just start with that. We'll just start with that because I've got some strong opinions, and I'm going to go with them. And like I said, I'm either going to look smart or really, really dumb. There's no middle of the road on this one for me. So, Dan, Forte, what do you think?
I mean, he can win. His numbers are just not that great, but I think we're just going to have to get used to that in the non-drug era, I guess we should say, now that they're actually looking at stuff. We're not getting as many 110s and 100, you're not getting those crazy performances that we used to get in the past. So I think it's going to be a log jam at the wire. I think Forte is one of them, but man, that price is short. God, that price is short. But you got Irad. He's going to bull his way through again. Here's my biggest knock, and I know it's a short field, but I'm not sure Forte wants to be inside of horses. So when they straighten down the backside, how's he going to get out? If he can get out, then he's going to get a great trip. He can just, go around National Treasure and the other speed horse, Scotland. If he can get third and get clear and get to the outside, fine. But if he can't, and there's a big chance that he can't, man, oh man, he's going to have to bull his way through. And but I think it's going to be a blanket finish. I mean, if you want to take him and pick fours and pick fives, I wouldn't bet him straight. No way, no how. There's way better 7-5 shots than him.
Interesting. Ed?
Yeah, I'd say I mostly agree. A lot of respect for his talent. I mean, to come off the bench with all that rigmarole going on in the Triple Crown season and finish second in the Belmont clearly speaks to a raw level of talent that honestly probably is the best against this group. But we've seen, the numbers from, pretty much everyone in this race is not that far off. Even the ones that are consistently slower than Forte, Disarm, I would say is probably at the bottom of that list, aren't so far off that to me taking, 7-5, which is what about 40% of the pool, it's too short. So I share Dan's overall assessment from a wagering standpoint that I would be against them. The one way I would use them, once it comes down to actually like plotting out potential tickets, is if Tapit Trice is getting completely ignored. I wouldn't want to miss Pletcher Exacta with Forte. Certainly wouldn't want to miss it with Mage. If it's Tapit Trice. If it's Tapit Trice with Forte, I wouldn't want to miss it. Now I feel the same way about Mage. So that's pretty much it for me as a key with the longest shot that I like. But yeah, as a strict win prospect, too short.
I agree with everything both of you said. But I'll take it a step further. I'm against him, and I'm not only against him because of the price. I'm against him for a couple of different reasons. One is, like both of you pointed out, he's not significantly faster as the favorite than the other horses. My other knocks are this. When he raced Mage back in Florida, he had a lot more seasoning, a lot more experience than Mage, and Mage gave him all that he could handle. And Forte, when I look at him, I see a horse that got real good at Saratoga last year, carried it into the fall, into the Breeders' Cup, carried it this year, but he's never really progressed. He's kind of been at that same level all along, and I always say these guys aren't machines. they're always due to throw in a subpar race. I'm waiting for his subpar race. He hasn't really gone forward. I think he's more likely to regress and throw that subpar race than some of the others are, who are looking to step up and have patterns to me that signify going forward. I think if he was going to go forward, we'd have seen it by now. I'm not impressed with the Belmont. I think that was a race where nobody really wanted to go a mile and a half, and I think that it looked better than it was the way he was closing. I don't think even the winner, Arcangelo, was really running very fast at the end of that race, and I just think there were so many reasons to bet against him for me. I think, Dan, you brought out a very good point about him being on the inside, a place he hasn't been, and we don't know how he's going to react to. I'm against him, and if he drifts up and winds up an overlay, which is not going to happen, I'm still against him. He's just not a horse I'm going to use, and not a horse I think is going to win. I bet differently. I don't let the odds dictate to me as much as some other people do. I'm not using him because I don't think he's going to win. And regardless of what the price is, I'm either going to be wrong or right at the end of the day, but I'm against him.
Hard to argue.
Arcangelo, what's your take on him, Ed, the Belmont winner, coming in very, very fresh?
Yeah, this will be the one you mentioned. You're either going to look really smart or really stupid. For me, this is the horse where that is going to make me look one or the other, because I am completely against Arcangelo in this spot. I do not like the lack of prep. I know that, we're getting longer between starts, but I look at guys like Todd Pletcher, who, pretty much demanded a prep for Forte and Tapit Trice for that matter. It just seems like a race where, for whatever reason, you don't get the longer layoffs. Guys are more willing to go Travers to Breeders' Cup Classic than they are Belmont to Travers. I definitely think there's a reason for that. Certainly no disrespect to Jenna, who obviously did a fantastic job winning the Peter Pan and then having a horse ready for a classic race against some pretty heavy hitters. But I just don't like the no prep move in here. And again, numbers wise, he absolutely fits. Like, there'd be every reason to think he would be a major player, but is what David Aragona thinks is going to be the clear second choice without having run a prep, who's just as fast as many of the others in here who are coming in off a better form cycle trajectory. In my mind, I have to play against at this price. And it's strictly a form thing with the layoff. Talent wise, no denying it, but off since the Belmont, I'm against it 5-2.
What do you think, Dan?
I agree with everything he said. If I made the morning line, he would be 4-1. Mage would be 5-2.
I agree with that.
I just think the Derby was a better race. And then, like Ed said, he's got a prep, and it was clearly a prep. Whether you bet on him or not, it was a prep, and he's ready now. And for everything JJ Castellano's done in his career, he's got a better rider now, in my opinion. I mean, maybe we're splitting hairs, maybe it's LeBron or Jordan. I don't know, but I like Saez better. I just do, especially in bigger races. And so, yeah, Arcangelo to me is one that is good. If he's 5-2, he's definitely not going to be on my tickets. I don't like those layoffs. Maybe I'm too old school. Like Ed just said, no prep. It bothers me. It just does. It bothers me. It's too far of a layoff to come in against the best horses in the country, at least in my opinion. So I would have liked to have seen him run in one of those preps, and I think he's going to stagger home. Maybe he'll be on the wire, but I think he's going to get really tired on that track going 1.25 miles. It's so hard to get him fit. It's of any place in the country to get a horse 1.25 miles at Saratoga. Man, they have to want it. They have to really want it. And I'm not so sure he's going to want it off that big layoff. So he's a play against for me too.
Again, so far, and I'm sure we're going to break apart, soon. But I agree with everything both of you said. I don't like the layoff. I think the last horse I can remember, and Ed, you're better with this kind of stuff than I am, but off the top of my head, I think Birdstone
That's
went
who
from
I was thinking
Travers.
of. I should
Yeah,
run it.
yeah, and that's when Nick Zito used to win a lot of races and was
Yeah.
extremely competitive. And again, like you said, nothing against Jenna Antonucci because she's done a marvelous job with the horse. But there's only a handful of trainers in my book that I'm willing to bet money on off this kind of layoff. If Chad Brown was doing it, I'm not worried. If Bob Baffert was doing it, I'm not worried. If Bill Mott was doing it, there are certain guys. There's a handful of guys that I'm not worried. Jenna, no disrespect meant, she's not experienced with these kind of horses. And for me, betting my money, investing, she's just not on that list yet. Maybe someday she will be, maybe she won't. I don't know. But right now, she's not. I think it's a big ask. And I went on record a couple of weeks ago saying, when everybody was talking about, what a tough decision it was for Javier. Well, it turned out that they took the decision away from him. But to me, I said then, this is a no-brainer. I give Mage the call today if I'm Javier's agent. I didn't see it as a big decision. To me, Mage has a ton more upside and a ton more talent than Arcangelo. And again, like you said, Ed, this is a horse that may make you look foolish or very smart come Saturday. I got two of them already because to me, this is a no-shot horse. So I got Forte, I don't think got a shot. Arcangelo, I don't think got a shot. So if you can't find me on Saturday night, I'll be hiding somewhere.
Well, the thing with Arcangelo, not that
why.
Forte doesn't have his backers either because he's going to be the favorite, but Arcangelo definitely has fans, so to speak, people who are vocal on social media. So, you're taking a shot against a horse that others are going to crow about if they're right. But for all the reasons we've talked about, I see 5-2, and it's an easy pass for me.
I agree. Now we'll get to a horse that I think is interesting, only because he was so well regarded and now he's kind of forgotten. Blinkers on, Jose Ortiz. So we've got, two changes. We blinker change and a rider change on Tapit, Trice. Off, I guess what we have to say are some disappointing performances, considering how much a lot of people, myself included, thought of him going into the Derby. Dan, let's go to you. What's your take on Tapit, Trice?
I think he's way too slow. They're not going to have a pace meltdown. He's losing his rider, even though I love Jose. I don't see it. I mean, he would have to be one that, they all bunch together and he's 5 wide and he comes flying and he gets up on the last step and, that kind of win. I just don't see it. But, it wouldn't shock me. It's Pletcher, it's Jose Ortiz. I mean, they've been here before. So, it wouldn't be a total shock, but I don't like him. I mean, especially the way the track's been playing for now 2 weeks. I mean,
well, if they ran this race last Saturday, I'd bet Scotland. Let me just say
yeah,
that.
the way they scrapped it, the way they scraped the track Saturday, it's a daggone conveyor belt. Hopefully they'll have it more fair for this Saturday, but who knows? So I would say pass. I'm not taking him in any of my tickets.
What about you, Ed?
I finally see a big price on him, and the Haskell was dreadful. I know, said it didn't, that track's not going to set up for Tapit, Trice. Todd sent him there for some reason, maybe to keep him away from Forte, who he could have at home, and got the job done. The number came back super slow. Ragozin sheet, big step back from the Belmont. So for those reasons, it was tough to like. And then David hangs a 12-1. And it's like, well, he has numbers to run back to.
Right.
Pace-wise, it doesn't look great for him, but it's not impossible. I mean, there are 2 speed horses, and then there's others who, depend. I think every race this year people have said, oh, Mage is going to be closer this time. Maybe Luis Saez, it finally happens. So maybe things conspire. It's like at this point, can I really let Tapit Trice beat me at 12-1? I'm not going to have him as my top selection by any means. But as I noted with Forte, I do think there's an opportunity, since I do like Forte a little and Mage a lot, that if Tapit Trice is in the mix with them, and since I'm completely against Arcangelo, that's what would have to happen for me. So mixed emotions, definitely letting the fan side of me, like I can't let this horse beat me after picking him every race. The jockey change is interesting. The price is finally somewhat right. So mixed emotions. I'll have to be exactly right in the other spots if he runs well. If it's Tapit, Trice, Arcangelo, I'm still going to lose, but he'll be in the mix with the ones I do like.
Yeah, I could see the emotional side of it or the fan side of it, because I did like him earlier in the year. I kind of had him pegged as a fighter type of horse who was tough, and I thought he was going to make some noise. But one thing I've learned is when it comes to betting is I have developed the discipline to kind of detach from that, and I don't like him on Saturday. I don't think the blinkers are enough to sway me, or the rider change, or the setup. So I'm gonna pass on him, and he's another one that will make me look foolish, as will the next one.
Oh,
Mage. No, well, but for a different reason.
Okay.
I'll start with him. I think Mage wins the Travers.
Oh no, we're all three on him. Oh
Listen,
no. Are they
listen.
going to announce 374 pounds overweight?
Now he's going to be 3-2 like Adamo was.
Oh no,
last
I'm
day.
changing my pick. Hold on.
He's going to open up 3-2. Watch.
Oh no, that's so much weight.
Listen. I've been doing this probably longer than both of you guys because I'm old. In the end of the day, no matter how superstitious we are, no matter all these little quirks, that has no effect on anything. Believe me, it doesn't come into play. Sometimes it feels like it does, and there's still one or two guys that I truly feel are mushes, and when they like my horse, I feel like I have no chance. And one of them is a dear friend of mine who I love, but it is what it is.
it is what it is.
Yeah. But I think Mage is sitting on a huge race.
Yeah.
Huge race. I Ramiro and Gustavo and his son, they've made every right call with this horse so far. Gustavo Delgado has been a dangerous trainer at big prices in these races. I mean, he ran second at a big number in the Travers a couple of years ago. I forget the name of the horse. Now he's in the game with a horse that's super talented. I think when he broke bad in Florida, it kind of gave him a new dimension. He did go wide to wire first time out at 7/8, but I think the Haskell prep was good. I don't like the horses coming out of the Belmont or the Peter Pan. I'm against everybody else. I love the switch to Saez. Nothing against Javier. He's won more Travers, I think, than anybody. But I love Saez in a big race. I think, I know for a fact that Luis has wanted to get back on this horse for a while, so it all worked out for him. And I think that he gets the right trip. I think that he follows the two speeds, laying in the catbird seat. I think he's in a more comfortable spot outside of Forte. I like to project these trips, and I just love his pattern on Thoroughgraph. I love his trip. I love the move. I love the prep. I got no knock. I wish he had a win over the track, because I love that at Saratoga. I love the horses that have wins over the track up there. He doesn't have that, but that's not enough to take me on anybody else. I think Mage and Ramiro and Gustavo win the Travers and go to the head of the class. Ed?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm definitely buying the it was a prep for the Haskell. And there's no reason not to with these connections. As you noted, the trainer, maybe not a known name in a lot of grade ones, but this is a guy that knows how to prep a horse, period.
No doubt.
And that is what they said the Haskell was. They, discussed both internally and externally. They were very transparent about whether they train up to the Travers or not. They opted that they did want to prep for this horse, and they got it. And there's no reason to think he's not going to fire a shot as good or better than the Derby, which, my trepidation is it's a funeral wedding situation, because I missed the wedding and the Derby at a very nice price, believing in the Apollo hype, and didn't race as a 2-year-old, and I cost myself there. This horse definitely had talent. As a sheets user, the numbers were there. So I'm taking a risk now of really backing him at 4-1 after missing at a much bigger price. I don't buy the perfect trip stuff in the Derby. He beat 17 other horses and ran the best race, and beat a horse who people were falling over themselves in 2 fills to say, oh, maybe he's the best 3-year-old, and he blew right by him. So to me, if you like anyone behind him in the Derby, how can you not like him here at 4-1 as the third choice? I'm fired up now. Mage all the way.
I agree. Are we going to get Ed 4-1?
I think so. I mean, there's people love Arcangelo. To me, the question is whether Forte 7 or 5 or not. If he's 2-1, then that's because money's coming in on Mage. But if he's 7-5, Mage has to be 4-1.
If Mage is 4-1, I'm gonna have to get that line of credit back out on my house. I mean, it'll be the biggest bet I've made in years if this horse is 4-1. God, I hope he stays 4-1. I'm only saving a little bit in the pick 5 with one other horse because I hate the single in the last leg of pick 5s. But
yeah, I live for that. I live to single.
I'd rather single in the first leg because then I can come back and bet the pick 4 if I lose.
My whole philosophy
I hate having a single in the late pick. Oh,
see, and I love that. I live for that. My philosophy is get me to that last leg and let's just ride.
Hopefully, I'll have multiple tickets with Mage. Yeah, my goal is to have multiple tickets so I don't have to bet on him. But lately, I'll blow everything and then have to take the 4-1 to get my money back. But yeah, I'm with you. This horse is so athletic. I mean, he beat me first time out. What a horse I thought couldn't lose. He was a first time starter. He popped that gate, and I'm throwing the form up trying to find out who in the hell's in front of me. And this horse was because the horse he beat was a really good horse.
I was there that day. He smoked. That whole field looked pretty good at that time, actually.
Yeah, the horse come back and win a Keeneland. I mean, that horse a nice horse. And then he comes into the Derby. Okay, so Forte scratched. But he did not get a perfect trip. I bet on 2 fills. I had a ton of money on 2 fills. When they turned for home, I jumped out of my seat. I didn't think I could lose. And then this little horse come flying on the outside. I'm like, I didn't know who it was at first. And then I looked, I was like, oh, that's Mage. How's he going to beat me? He's only run a couple times. And if he beat me that day, now he's got more experience. He's grown up. He's gained weight. I mean, he had the prep, was a perfect prep. He made his run. He hung a little bit, which is exactly what he's supposed to do in a prep. You don't want him going all out anyway. I'm glad he didn't win. I didn't want him to win by 5. Then he'd be 7-5 in here. So I think when it's all said and done, he's the best 3-year-old, and we'll find out. I love the rider change. I'm in shock that JJ took the other horse, but I'm sure Kieran McLaughlin was doing a dance behind the scene to get Sias on that horse.
That's actually true.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great trainer. He might be a better agent. That tells you how sharp I think he is. I think he's one of the sharpest guys in horse racing.
No argument.
And I think Mage is going to make that run. I think he's going to sit right behind Scotland, National Treasure, maybe 4th, maybe 5th on the outside. Sias tends to hustle him a little bit more, so it wouldn't surprise me if he was a little closer. And then I seen coming 3 or 4 abreast, turning for home, and I think he's going to be in front. And the only way Irad's going to win to me is if somehow that field strings out and somehow he can get off that rail and in front of Mage 3 wide. I don't think I don't think it's going to happen. I think Mage is going to be in front of him, and I think Mage is going to get the first run, and they're going to have to run him down. And unless he hangs in the last 16th that I don't see coming off of that prep, I think he's going to run a monster race.
We're all on the same page. So let's see what happens. I like it.
Louise over the cliff.
I'm not discouraged by that at all. We've all done our homework, and I'm fine with that. National Treasure, part of the pace, Preakness winner. Thoughts on him, Ed?
And it's funny saying this about a horse who won the Preakness Stakes, but just feels like a not ready for primetime player when, the real chips have been down against horses people were really excited about. He's disappointed. And, the Preakness caught a perfect storm. No horses came back. The cock scratch, whatever the day or the day before the race, whatever that was, hasn't been seen since, even though they said he only needed a couple weeks. But I digress. It just seems like he caught the exact scenario he would have needed to win the Preakness. Blazing Seven certainly hasn't come back to flatter anybody. And people might say, oh, well, Mage was third behind them. I feel pretty confident that they wouldn't have ever run back in the Preakness if it weren't part of a series called the Triple Crown. And kudos to them for taking a shot. And then they, took a break and came back with the prep. But there's no doubt in my mind that the Mage we saw in the Derby wins this race far more often than twice more than National Treasure. And based on the odds, that's an overlay. So for me, 8-1 can be kind of intriguing. Johnny V, Bob Baffert, if they steal it, I'll tip my cap, but I'm against.
Thoughts, Dan?
I would love to know, just to be a fly on the wall with Johnny V and Bob Baffert's conversation. They're on the inside of Scotland, correct? They're going to that first turn. Does he say the same thing that they did with Medina Spirit and just say, I don't care how fast you have to go, just get the lead? Or do they let Scotland make the lead? Unfortunately, we can't bet on the first turn. If he makes a clear lead, he's got a chance. But if Scotland makes the lead over him, I think he's got no chance.
No, none.
I don't think he can sit second and outclose Forte and Mage and Arcangelo. I just don't think he can. The only chance he's got is to gun, take the lead, and hope they scrape that track like it's been several days this meet, and hope he keeps going. And I don't think that's going to happen.
They're taking blinkers off, which I think is a little bit of a tell that they might not be looking to go that way and might be thinking that they could sit a little bit.
And Baffert didn't enter a fullback to block for him like he did with Arrogate. So, there's nobody blocking for him. He's going to have to run his own race. I wouldn't be sad. Well, I'd probably cry if he won because of my buddy Clinton Glasscock that passed away, but own part of him. It'd be a great story, but I just don't think the horse is good enough.
I tend to agree. He's a horse that very early in his career, going back to, his 2-year-old year when I saw him up close and then saw him in the barn and saw him at the Breeders' Cup, I thought he was going to really be one of the good ones. And he just never really turned that corner and panned out. I did bet him in the Preakness, and I agree with Ed. He caught the perfect scenario and really had to dig down to fight and beat Blazing Sevens, who ran a big race and again, like Ed said, didn't really come back to do anything after that. So I'm on Mage over him big time in here. The next horse is intriguing to me, and is a horse that I am going to use not to win. I'm going to bet Mage, but I'm going to use Disarm for second. I just think that this is a horse that, and I like to bet horses like this. That's coming around a little later than the rest of them. Hasn't been that far off of them. Always looked like he could, take a step forward and get competitive. I think he had a couple of compromising trips that didn't really go his way, where he could have been a little closer and a little better. I watched a replay of his Derby a couple of times, and I think that race is actually a little better than it looks when you watch the replay and isolate on him and focus on him, as opposed to just looking at the charts and the past performances. So I think Disarm is a horse that can definitely get a piece, can definitely make some noise. I think it would have to be an upset for him to outfinish Mage. I'm not going to bet on him to do that. But if they run 4-6, I will not be hiding on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think if I was a try player, I'd take Disarm third. I would have him in the tries. I think he's one of the horses that wants the distance. I think he'll just keep grinding away. I don't think he can win, but if you're keying Mage in trifectas, he would be in my third hole and maybe a little in my second hole. I wouldn't have any problem. Now, I'm not a big try player, but if I was, that's the way I would play that. Yeah, I think he's got a big chance to hit the board.
What are your thoughts on him, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, for me, being against Arcangelo and completely, and then not even thinking, I'm not as bearish as you, but I wouldn't be shocked if Forte's fourth. And Disarm could be one of the ones who ends up in front of him. The Derby was fine. My knock on him last time, he had a little bit of buzz, and I just feel like the numbers, weren't there compared to the hype's probably a little overzealous of a word with him, but he definitely had some attention. People liked him in the Derby and liked him since. And even in the victory at Ellis Park, the number wasn't necessarily quick. But that race last out with fourth, it actually did come back a little quicker. So he is moving in the right direction. Definitely don't like him as much as Mage, but absolutely, to me, being willing to toss Forte, because it's a 7-horse field. So there's Mage Forte doesn't do anything for me from a payout standpoint. I'd much rather gamble with a horse like Disarm. Now I will say I prefer Tapit Trice a little bit, but really, if you get either one underneath Mage, you're still going to do okay. And if you get both, that's a nice try in a 7-horse field. So I'm definitely similar to Dan, although I do play try, so dissimilar in that way. But yeah, Disarm to me, that's who you want to get underneath, not Forte. Certainly not Arcangelo.
All right. We're at the bottom. Not that way, but at the bottom of the field, as far as post position goes, number 7, Scotland. Ed, what's your take on Bill Mott's horse?
I'm very eager to see how he gets bet. It's kind of a theme for this race. I mean, I do think Disarm and Tapit Trice will be the 6th and 7th choices in some combination. So then where Scotland lands, but 4th or 5th with National Treasure being the other one, to me is the big question mark. I don't love horses that go gate to wire for the signature win when they've never shown that dimension before. That makes me question the quality of the race. Now, in this case, he's not going to be favored. A lot of times when I use that example, it's, they had this breakout win where they were able to dictate terms and then they're a short price next out. That's not in play here, but being on Mage, who clearly is going to be in the top tier with Forte and Arcangelo, I still think Scotland might be a little short. I've seen enough chatter where people are picking him much more so than either of the other 3 that aren't among the Derby, Belmont, and Champion trio. So I do think he'll be an underlay, but Bill Mott is such a magician that, like, to me, this is the one where you're like, oh, Bill Mott, what can you say? And I might have to say that while ripping up tickets, but in a 7-horse field, you don't have a lot of room for, I want to use this a little and that a little. So he's just one of those I'm taking a stand against.
What about you, Dan?
He's my saver. Where when I make the pick five, I'll probably have $2, $3, $4 ones with Mage and a 50-cent one with him. And that's the only horse I'm saving with. I'm not using anybody else. Only because of the way the track is played. He might get the lead. And what if he just keeps going? I mean, sometimes, we saw it with Arrogate. Nobody, I don't know. I was there with 20 people that day. I didn't know one person that liked Arrogate. And he won by 20. He just took off and just never looked back and just kept going. And we're all like, who in the hell is that? It could happen. So I'm not going to bet a lot, but he's my saver, period. That just when they turn for home, if he's 4 in front, I'm not going to be screaming and throwing stuff. At least I'll hopefully be alive in the pick five to some, because he should be at least 4 or 5 times higher payout wise than the 3 big names.
No
I think.
question.
So, if it's $1,000 to those, it might be 5 to him, and I only need a 50-cent. So
Right.
that's the way I'm going to play it. But I'm not saving with Disarm, and I'm not saving with Forte and Arcangelo. It's only him. Other than that, it's Mage, and just a little bit with him.
Well, it's interesting because our takes are so similar on really the entire field because I'm going to bet Mage, barring some bizarre circumstances between now and race time. But if I'd have to say, if you ask me going in the gate, John, who you worried about? I would say Scotland's the one I'm worried about. I'm not going to bet him. I don't think he's going to be able to go wire to wire, but it won't shock me if he does for all the reasons that you guys said. It's Belmont. I think he's going to clear. I don't think National Treasure is going to go with him. I think he's going to be the one that clears and is on the lead, even from the outside. And if the track is like it was last Saturday and some other days on this meet, and it becomes even more of a concern. But I think he's clear. He's on the lead. He's the one they're going to have to run down. I'm hoping that Johnny goes after him a little bit early. Luis is close enough to get to him on the far turn and turn it for home. If that happens, I'm okay. If it doesn't, like you said, Dan, they get brave. So he's the one I'm a little concerned about. And a lot of people would hedge or use 2, like in the pick 5, like you do. But in the 7-horse field, when my opinion is strong and I can see the scenario, playing out to get me the setup that I need, I'm just going to take my shot with the 1 horse and see what happens. But yeah, he's dangerous. You can't beat what you can't catch sometimes, and speed's always scary.
And let's face it, I'm not accusing Bill Mott of anything, but his horses in these big time graded races over the last year have just run off the charts. They just have.
Oh, you see, I look at that a little differently because I remember there were meets, okay, when Jerry Bailey was riding, where Bill Mott dominated Saratoga all meet long, dominated Gulfstream Park all meet long, used to win all those stakes at Gulfstream, all those turf races off a year layoff with all
turf
those
with
Alan
Bailey.
Paul, right? All those Alan Paulson horses used to be off for a year, come back before the 5 and win. Up at Saratoga, couldn't beat him. Maidens, mile and an eighth, mile and a quarter, first time out, boom, win all over the place. So I've been watching Bill Mott, even first time starters a couple of years ago, 5-6 years ago, there was always buzz. Oh, Bill Mott can't win with a first timer. And in the stats, it would look like that. You know how many of them I bet that won at big prices when people used to say that? The guy's been deadly for as far as I can remember. You could go back to when he used to train for the Firestones. Okay. Guy's deadly. So, yeah, he's one of those guys that, in my opinion, anytime he's in a race, he's got a shot to win it or he wouldn't be there. And that goes from a maiden special weight to a grade 1 classic. Doesn't matter. Bill Mott's dangerous. So, It is what it is. It is what it is, as far as I'm concerned. He's been doing this a long time. I mean, yeah, he is hot this year and he is popping this year, but he's been dangerous as far back as I could remember. So Scotland is scary, no question.
Yeah, no,
I may talk myself into putting him on my pick five just in case.
if he beats me, it's one of those like you just, man, Belmont.
Right. No, you got listen, there was some talk the other day. I was a guest on that Bet with the Best Bet podcast that Chris LeMay put out, and there's been some talk. And Ed, you and I discussed this when we used to bet the pick sixes together years ago and on Twin Spires. You got to be willing to take a position and back it and make it count when you're right. You know what I mean? And you know, hedging and using a lot of horses to me takes away from that. When I'm right, I want to get paid, and everything I hedge on or everything I bet against my big opinion, if I'm right, I feel like I'm costing myself money, not insuring or hedging, which is maybe a wrong way to look at it. You know, it's whatever works for you, but that's worked for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, do I know Scotland's scary and dangerous? Absolutely. Am I going to wish I had him if, like Dan said, you know, Alvarado's got 3-4 lengths turning for home and nobody went with him and, you know, 113 and change. And I'm sitting there saying, I knew this could happen, you know, and the pick five back 7,400, but you got to be willing to do that. You know what I mean?
I think, you know, what Dan mentioned about waiting it is more work than most people put in, which is, well, I'll just use both equally when your opinion isn't equal. And certainly, I forget who I read this, makes perfect sense. Someone mentioned it on social media recently, but it's like, okay, you have your opinion, which in our case is Mage. The worst thing you can do is if your hedge or saver is Forte. Like, why are you doubling your ticket or increasing your ticket at all with a 7-5 when you're so gung ho on a 4-1? Now, if you want to, and I definitely will be doing this. I haven't seen what the races look like right before. That Jerkins is going to be a barn burner for sure. The ballerina looks stout, etc. But I'll have a way, you know, or if Tapit, Trice, or Disarm win is the 6th or 7th choice. If I'm dead right in the other 4 legs, I don't mind those being my added tickets, or, you know, Dan's case, Scotland. But when you're going on and on, like I just have about Mage, or we all have about Mage, and then your saver is Forte, you're just shooting yourself in the head.
100%. And you know, it's funny because there are so many people that don't get that concept, even longtime players. And, you know, you try and explain it. And I think it just goes against human nature. I think that the basic instinct is to just want to cash your ticket, you know? So you know, I used to have this argument with my dad when he was a mutual club. He'd be like, well, why do you leave Forte out? He's the favorite. Just put him in. And I'm like, no, you know what I mean? I don't do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want you to do that. But there are a lot of people that just can't get past that mindset, you know? And I think in the long run, those are not players that have any shot of really winning or beating the game, because that's just
my pet peeve is when guys won't bet straight. I don't understand it. I sit with guys that played for 40 years. They'll just sit there and bet pick 5s and pick 4s every day, and they'll single horses and they'll win, and then they'll lose the pick 5. And I'm like, well, how much did you bet on the horse you singled? Oh, nothing. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
how can you not bet on your single?
That's a mistake.
I mean,
especially if it's a price, you know.
I mean, I bet on my single every day. I mean, it just, if he's 3-5 or if he's 8-1, I'm betting on him because I'm trying to pay for my ticket. You know, I'm trying to pay for my pick 5 ticket. So I just don't understand it. But there's, like you said, there's guys that just.
I've been betting a lot of the European races lately. I made a nice bet this morning on the Juddmonte International, on the horse Frankie Dettori rode. He beat Paddington, and it was really a great ride. He just took the lead from Paddington right out of the gate and whatnot. But betting the UK races forces you to bet to win, because they don't have no pick 3s or pick 5s or not even doubles. You know, every once in a while they put one in there, but usually they don't. So it kind of forces you. And last week I bet in Spiral, a nice bet, and I think she was 3 or 4 to 1. And today I got 3 or 4 to 1 on a horse that I might have, a lot of people might have thrown away in a pick 4 or pick 5, because some of those other races over there are like impossible with 20 horses and whatnot. So I like that style of betting your single to win, and then the pick 5 or the pick 4 or whatever is just icing on the cake.
Yep.
Well, guys, always a pleasure.
Very much.
Yes,
we will
thank
have
you.
some great racing to look forward to. Friday, they changed it up a little bit. They got the personal ensign on Friday with Nest and Clairiere going at it again.
I think the Cox has I think if you leave the Cox out of there, you're crazy.
The horse on the rail with the speed, Idiomatic or whatever. Is that my saying?
Look at the rags numbers. Look at the buyer numbers on the rail speed. I'm just saying. I haven't
done the race yet, but a friend of mine asked me, he said, "What do you think of that race?" I said, "Well, I just glanced at it, and it looks like Cox is alone on the lead from the rail."
I mean,
I'm a little nervous. She's going to be really smoked in the wagering.
Well, she might.
I agree with that. She's going to take plenty of money.
She obviously it fits, but with Nest in there, who will obviously be the favorite.
I think she's won 6 out of her last 7 too, or 5 out of her last 6. So yeah, she knows how to find a.
That'll be a fun race. That'll be a fun race.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
I guess we'll convene.
Go Mage.
We'll convene for another one pretty soon. Right. Go Mage. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
If you can't find us on Saturday night, everybody will know why.
Yeah.
All right.
No
guys.
secret.
See ya.
Ciao. Bye.
They're off in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Vino Rosso has taken the lead, and it's a vintage performance by Vino Rosso.
Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
It is here, the big day, the day almost all of us in horse racing wait for, Breeders' Cup Saturday. It looks like we're going to see some really, really impressive races on Saturday. It starts with the filly and mare sprint. One of my stronger opinions on the card is Goodnight Olive to start things off. I think she gets a perfect trip.
Goodnight Olive, 6 in a row, and a Breeders' Cup champion.
We've got Modern Games going in the Turf Mile for Godolphin. The Godolphin and Aidan O'Brien horses, we said on Past the Wire TV all week long on the backside. Those two contingents stuck out from all the rest. Modern Games looking for a big race from him.
Modern Games, storming down the center of the course. Modern Games, a 2-time Breeders' Cup winner. You bet he is.
That is Rebels Romance, who in my humble opinion is one of Godolphin's better chances this year. Rebels Romance is a very, very good looking Godolphin horse that can absolutely win this race. Rebels Romance is a must use.
Rebels Romance, rolling on the outside. Warlock got it. Makes her bend down toward the inside. Rebels Romance down the center of the course. Has it close to home. Rebels Romance wins the turf over Stoney.
We got Flightline that they're putting in the best ever category. There's no question that the race he ran in the Pacific Classic is one of the best races we've seen any racehorse run ever.
It is Flightline. It is mind-tingling, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, Secretariat-like.
Does it better.